At the start of Ohio State's 1996 season, the prevailing mood was one of hope, tinged with uncertainty. The team had plenty of talent returning on defense, but the offense was faced with the prospect of replacing 3 first-round draft picks, including Heisman Trophy winner Eddie George. Of course, the Buckeyes themselves saw only opportunity, and by the end of the season, they'd stake their claim as one of Ohio State's greatest teams ever.
When Joe Germain hit David Boston in the closing seconds of the 1997 Rose Bowl, the Buckeyes claimed one of Ohio State's biggest victories and one of college football's most exciting games.
Ohio State's win over Arizona State in the Rose Bowl is definitely one of the top 10 wins in all of Ohio State football.
Oh, it was huge. I mean, it was huge. It was very huge.
It was a big, big moment for me and for the team.
For us to come down and score, to Joe Germain, to David Boston, it was the greatest feeling in the world.
It was just a wild celebration, and it was awesome. We had won the Rose Bowl.
The win capped a season that saw the Buckeyes rise near the top of the polls before a devastating defeat delivered a crushing blow. But in spite of suffering one painful setback, the 1996 Buckeyes produced an amazing season that surpassed almost all expectations.
The preseason expectations for the 1996 season were pretty good, but there were a lot of holes to fill, particularly on the offensive side of the ball.
You know, I remember people saying, oh my God, they're losing Terry Glenn, you know, Eddie George, Bobby Hoying, and Eddie, just down the line of players that we have.
To lose all those guys, I mean, that's a tough break for an offensive team to have.
So that we went into the season thinking that the defense had to take great leadership and get the offense some time to come along.
Unlike the offense, the defense returned virtually intact. Their strategy and mindset, however, were radically revamped by longtime assistant and new defensive coordinator, Fred Puggich.
Coach Puggich wasn't afraid to roll the dice and let guys go out and try to make plays aggressively, and that was our philosophy from day one.
Coach Puggich's philosophy every single week was take away the run, and then we're going to force them to be one-dimensional and throw the ball, and we're going to get after that quarterback.
We played a lot of matchup man coverage. We had 2 corners that could do that, Ty Howard and Sean Springs. They would man up on the wide receivers, and that would leave the other 9 guys to stop the running game.
That was kind of the new formula for defenses. I think we were kind of on the leading edge of that at the time.
The changes were motivated in part by a defensive collapse in the previous season in a game that cost the Buckeyes a potential national title.
That 95 Michigan game shattered our season, our dreams. We thought we'd have a nice Big Ten ring on and be competing for a national championship come the bowl game.
We gave up 300-something yards rushing to one guy, and that was terrible, and that, you know, you never want to remember a day like that.
And when you sit back and you play cover 2 all day, when you got 2 safeties trying to make every tackle, it gets ugly, and it got ugly really quickly. So, I mean, knowing that that wasn't going to be the way that we're going to approach the season was something I was really looking forward to.
Also lost in the Michigan debacle was a trip to the Rose Bowl, a trek Ohio State hadn't made in over 10 years. For the 96 seniors, the thought of one more season spent outside Pasadena was too much to bear.
We just wanted that Rose Bowl. It was our last year. It was the last time that we had a chance.
We thought we had the best team the year before, but it didn't end up working out, and you know, it really wouldn't have been the type of year that anybody expected if we didn't get to where we wanted to be, and that was in the Rose Bowl.
On September 7th, 1996, Ohio State kicked off their run for the Roses against Rice, and they hit the ground running. Their 70-7 victory unveiled a rebuilt offense that was ready to roll in spite of heavy losses.
I really didn't think that it was going to be a letdown, even though they had such big names in that year before. I knew we had guys that could play.
One thing that people did not understand that was we had 3 deep. Our 3rd string could probably go start at any other school at that point.
That depth showed itself at several positions, including quarterback, where 2 distinctly different players shared time under center.
Stanley Jackson was like one of those guys that he was a little gnat. You couldn't really get your hands on him. And just when you think you've shut him down, here comes Joe Germain, who's got a rocket arm that could thread the needle. And I thought it was a perfect complement to one another.
The game also marked the debut of the Buckeyes' most heralded recruit in years, Andy Katzenmoyer.
There's always that recruit that is the can't-miss guy, and Andy was one of those can't-miss type talented players.
He was potentially the guy that sent a lot of people to the hospital. I mean, the kid was freakish. It's a little scary.
He was a starter from day one. We put him at middle linebacker, and he started every game he played for us.
And he stepped right in like it was nothing, and he played like that all year.
Katzenmoyer's addition was the final link to a defense that was ready to be unleashed. And when the Buckeyes rolled Pittsburgh 70-0 in week number 2, talk of national titles suddenly began to swirl. But before the Buckeyes could be counted as official contenders, they would have to take on two of college football's most legendary coaches. The Ohio State Buckeyes opened the 1996 season in surprisingly forceful fashion, blasting their two opponents by a combined score of 142-7.
I think we all expected big victories in those first 2 games. We didn't expect to put up 70-plus points in each of those.
After we won, 70-0, 72-0, we were all sitting there thinking, hey, I think we got a pretty good team here.
Pollsters agreed and lifted the Buckeyes 6 slots from 10th to 4th. But sitting next on the schedule were two of college football's most powerful and tradition-laden programs, Notre Dame and Penn State.
I remember just going to Notre Dame, having the opportunity to play in that stadium, the atmosphere, the mystique.
And that's a special place. If you grew up a football fan, you know Notre Dame, you know Touchdown Jesus.
And the Golden Dome and all that kind of stuff, you kind of go in there and look around, and they got that tradition, but we were definitely looking forward to going in there and trying to take care of business.
The game marked Ohio State's first visit to South Bend in 60 years. And like the Buckeyes, the Irish entered the battle ranked in the top 5. But from the game's opening kick, the Scarlet and Gray grabbed control.
Yard line, across the 5 to Stanley, across the 10, near side 15, 20, a little bit of a home.
Demeter Stanley returned the opening kickoff back to about their 15-yard line.
He is still down near the 13-yard line.
That set the tone for what was going to happen the rest of the game.
Pepe Pearson's 3-yard scamper put the Buckeyes on the board, and the Irish on their heels. The Buckeye defense kept them there.
And he's going to go down as the Buckeyes were all over him.
One goal for the defense was Ron Powell's. Just get after his rear end all day long. I can remember Vrabel and Rob Kelly and Belisari having a couple of big-time hits, and it was like a party at the quarterback.
We know what they're doing. We had them scouted well, and we know that what we're doing, they can't stop them. We knew we had them.
All of a sudden, the curtain number 3 came up, and it was this brand new defense, and I think not only did we surprise them, we surprised a lot of people.
The ball is knocked loose. Ohio State has recovered the fumble.
When you see your defense going out there and playing like they did, boy, it just gives you so much confidence to go out there and just kind of play loose, and we just played a very good game and handled those guys.
Ohio State's 29-16 win evened their all-time series with the Irish at 2 wins apiece and lifted them to number 3 in the polls. The following week, the Buckeyes returned home to play Penn State in another top 5 showdown. In a game that needed no added incentive, the Buckeyes dredged up a painful Penn State memory from 2 years before.
Got beat like 64 to, I don't even want to say it, it was so miserable.
We were all on that team, and we'll never forget getting beat 63-14.
It was maybe their darkest day in the uniform, and it became more than just a rivalry of 2 great football teams. It became very personal.
We were really looking for that day to have a little redemption and put it on them maybe like they put it on us that day.
And a near total turnabout, the Buckeyes delivered one of Ohio State's most dominating big game wins, a 38-7 tour de force.
That was the shellacking. That's when we knew, all right, we got something here.
We tried to shut them out. That was our goal, was to shut out Penn State.
We took that as a personal challenge, as how can we come back from a big emotional victory and do well against a good Joe Paterno team.
To come back and beat Notre Dame and Penn State back-to-back in a dominating type fashion was very satisfying indeed.
The win moved Ohio State up to 2nd in the polls and into the driver's seat for the Big Ten crown. And after holding back stubborn Wisconsin, the Buckeyes reeled off 4 convincing wins, including 2 by shutout.
Oh, man is there, and it's a touchdown.
The run put them in a position to do something Ohio State hadn't done since 1957, wrap up the Big Ten title and a trip to the Rose Bowl the week before the Michigan game. Against lowly Indiana, that feat appeared all but certain, but the Hoosiers refused to roll over.
We knew we were going to get in there, and they're going to play it hard because they had nothing to lose. I think they played probably the best they played all year on offense.
The Buckeyes, on the other hand, seemed tight, and as the game moved deep into the fourth quarter, the score was tied at 10.
It's going to be Indiana ball. Pressured, runs into his
But when Andy Katzenmoyer stripped the ball from quarterback Jay Rogers, Matt Finkes picked up the pigskin and rumbled 44 yards for the go-ahead score.
10. It's a touchdown for Ohio State.
2 more turnovers led to 10 more points, and for the first time in more than a decade, the Buckeyes would be playing in Pasadena.
We were happy that we got, that we were going to the Rose Bowl, but once you make that one goal, you've got to jump to the next one, and that was to be a national champion.
To play for it all, however, the Buckeyes would have to get past their most hated rival, an act that was becoming all too infrequent. In fact, as they entered the '96 battle, Ohio State had won just 2 of the rivalry's last 11 games. Yet in spite of being pegged at 17-point favorites, the '96 Buckeyes failed to solve their Michigan slump.
For the second year in a row, Ohio State goes into the Michigan game undefeated, and Michigan plays the spoiler role, and the Wolverines win in Ohio Stadium 13-9 after Ohio State led 9-0 at the half.
If we'd have scored touchdowns each time we'd have been down there, we would have had 21 points, they'd have had 13 points, we win, we go home. But that stuff, field goals doesn't get it.
In the second half, they scored on a long touchdown pass.
He has daylight.
And then late in the game, we didn't have the ability to stop their counterplay a couple times when we needed to get the ball back.
It was so much more disappointing because you felt like it just slipped through your fingers.
And still on his feet, breaks away.
It was the third time in 4 years that an undefeated Ohio State season came crashing down against the Maize and Blue.
It's intercepted for Michigan. They will win this football game.
But unlike those previous campaigns, the Rose Bowl and a chance at redemption remained firmly within the Buckeyes' grasp.
Plenty of time, swings it out to 15, 10.
After cruising through their first 10 opponents, Ohio State's 1996 season ran into a brick wall against Michigan. Their 13-9 defeat cost them a shot at the national title and left the team reeling in a state of disbelief.
I think it was a little bit of shock, and that's where not only the captains, but some of those other seniors really took over.
We had high character guys. We had guys that were tough, mentally tough, physically tough, and we wanted to get that bad taste out of our mouth.
We were not going to end that season on a negative note because we're an outstanding football team and we were playing an outstanding football team.
Arizona State was a tremendously talented offensive team. It had been averaging about 43 points per game. And if they beat Ohio State, they probably would have some decent chance of being selected the national champion for the 1996 season.
The star of the Sun Devils' attack was their crafty and charismatic quarterback, Jake the Snake Plummer.
One of the best competitors I think we've ever gone up against was Jake Plummer.
He was incredibly athletic and quick. Wasn't a very big guy, but he was a playmaker and the signature player on that team.
For Arizona State, the game was a rare appearance on college football's biggest stage. For the Buckeyes, it was a chance to reclaim their program's honor in a game that was once seen as its birthright.
This is Ohio State's 13th appearance in the Rose Bowl, but it's the first time they've been to the Rose Bowl in 12 years, and they haven't won in 23 years.
When I was a kid growing up, I can remember Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, and then when you realize how difficult it is to actually get to the Rose Bowl, the promised land. So I think each and every one of those individuals on that team understood the importance and the significance of going out in style in Pasadena.
From the game's opening kick, the Buckeyes appeared ready to play.
And here comes battle. Hole in the middle.
People were moving that game, and I think that was the highest level of football I had ever seen at the college level.
Down at the 15-yard line, and there's the big cat rolling.
And with the Ohio State defense handling the snake,
Plummer in trouble, going down.
the Buckeye offense drew first blood.
Fires, and with the ball caught, let's see, the officials are conferring touchdown.
Well, that kind of got the ball rolling, kind of let us all know, hey, we're here. And I think it let ASU know, too, that we've forgotten the game prior and we were here for business.
The score remained 7-zip until the closing minutes of the half, when Plummer and the Sun Devils finally broke through with a spectacular, if disputed, score.
It was two great teams out there making plays, and that's a hard call to make. You got a DB who's all over him. The kid's got to go out there and make an exceptional catch, and he make what looked like a catch.
They were going to make some plays. We were going to make them earn everything they got.
When ASU opened the second half with a go-ahead field goal, they briefly appeared to have grabbed momentum.
Devils into their first lead of the day.
But just 2 plays later, the Buckeyes struck back with their biggest pass play of the year.
Myers completes it to Stanley. He might go all the way. 30, 20, 10, 5, and some.
I'm like, they're playing me man coverage, and the safety's cheat down, and if you throw me the ball across the middle, I'll score.
We worked on that post route that we threw for a month to prepare for that game. And it worked out just like we practiced, and he took it all the way.
With the Buckeyes back in the lead, the game began to resemble a heavyweight bout, with each side searching for the decisive blow.
As the game's starting to wind down and both teams are just battling, and a few big plays had been made at that point.
He's free. Sauer now foot race has the aim.
But we weren't putting them away. We weren't knocking them out.
With time running out, the Sun Devils pushed deep into Buckeye territory. Bottled up for most of the game, Jake the Snake sprang to life. On 4th and 4, Plummer hit Lindsey Jackson to keep the Devils' drive alive.
Got it. First and goal for the Sun Devils.
3 plays later, the Snake slithered his way into the end zone.
Still on his feet. He's going to dive for the end zone, and he scores a touchdown.
It was a punch in the gut. I mean, we have him so dead to rights that it's just insane. He just makes, 4 or 5 guys miss? I can't explain that.
I can definitely remember, like the wind coming out of us.
I just remember being out there and just thinking, geez, I mean, how can we do this well, and to have it come down to the end, it can't end this way. Not again.
While the Sun Devils celebrated seeming victory, the Buckeyes regrouped for one last drive.
That didn't bother me. It's like, all right, they scored, now we got to go.
We got time. We've got plenty of time here. And I look over and Joe Germain, he's thinking the same thing.
We knew what we had to do, and I didn't have to give him some big motivating speech. Just that look in my eye and to look in everybody else's eye, and that's all it took.
With just 1:33 left to play, Germain and the Buckeyes began their furious race to beat the clock.
And it wasn't a question in our mind. It wasn't a question from our offensive line whether they were going to hold up or whether Joe Germain was going to make the good pass. It was a question of, do we have enough time?
Joe Germain, he hit 3 third-down passes to Demetrius Stanley. And then Ohio State, with the aid of a couple of penalties, ends up with the ball at the Arizona State 5-yard line, 24 seconds to go.
Straight back to throw. Has time. Swings it out right side. Completes it. Boston's into the end zone. Touchdown, Ohio State.
There's only 19 seconds on the clock, and David Boston has just scored one of the biggest touchdowns in Ohio State football history.
We knew at that point that this is a done deal, and we were Rose Bowl champions, and it was just a wild celebration.
I saw the cornerback who was guarding David Boston following my eyes in, kind of left his responsibility, and that just left David wide open.
To look around and just see the smiles on the faces and that look of like, finally, it was an amazing thing.
For Ohio State, the win raised the Buckeyes to a second-place finish in the polls and solidified their return to college football prominence. The 96 seniors spearheaded that return, and the Rose Bowl victory, their 41st in 4 years, made them Ohio State's winningest class ever.
To win in the fashion we did, on the stage we did, against the team we did, with the team that we had, you couldn't write a better ending.
For Coach John Cooper, who led the Sun Devils to a win over Michigan in the 1986 Rose Bowl, the win earned him the honor as the only coach to win Rose Bowls with 2 different teams.
To go back and be the only coach to win 2 Rose Bowls and beat the team that you left was very satisfying indeed for me.
And for the player who grew up within miles of the Arizona State campus, only to be spurned by his hometown team, the closing minutes of the 1997 Rose Bowl made Joe Germain a legend and an eternal Buckeye hero.
He was so cool and calm in that last drive. He was just cool as a cucumber.
a cool guy under pressure, and you don't really know how good he is until he's in those situations.
Just the feeling that we were able to come back to go ahead of them in the fashion that we did, it was an unbelievable feeling.
Ohio State's thrilling win over Arizona State was the defining moment in Joe Germain's outstanding Ohio State career. But for followers of the Sun Devils, watching Joe lead the Buckeyes to victory must have led to one burning question. How did we ever let this guy get away? For Buckeye Classics, I'm Archie Griffin. Thanks for watching.